Good morning, everybody. Thank you guys for joining our training call again this week. Today is going to be about how to successfully door knock. I know a lot of insurance agents that do this very successfully. I know we've got some new insurance agents that have been doing this as of late. Some for Medicare, some for final expense, some for either. And we are having some success, but we can always have more success. So today I want to go over the kind of the tricks of the trade to door knocking. In my, as you saw from the email last night, I know I've knocked at least 10,000 doors in my 5-year career, for sure. And definitely more than that. I've fortunately been able to make as much as $15,000 in one single month strictly from door knocking. And so the information I'm going to give you is things that I've done and have noticed and learned from some experienced door knocking. We're going to go over the numbers behind door knocking. We're going to go over the time to door knock. We're going to go over the types of places to door knock. We're going to go over the script that you need to use when you're door knocking. We're going to go over some objections that you're going to run into when you door knock. Before we start, I think everyone knows the secret to door knocking. It's just like cold calling or calling leads or anything else. The goal is to get in the house. So when you're door knocking, the goal is to get in the door. And so I'm going to give you some tricks of the trade and some tips on how you can do that. First, we'll go over the numbers behind door knocking. And the numbers behind door knocking, and these are kind of general averages. Obviously, someone's skill definitely can alter these numbers in up or down. But these are averages. Typically, 1 out of every 4 doors that you knock on will actually answer the door. About 1 out of every 4 or 5 of those will actually let you in the door. So if you think about that, we're at about 16 to 20 knocks to get in a home, typically, is from personally what I've noticed. And then about the ones that I get into, about 1 out of every 2 to 3 of those, one of every 2 to 3 of those that we get into, we can actually sell. So if you do the math, you're looking at about 1 out of every 32 to 64. I'm sorry, 1 out of every 40 to 60. I apologize. 1 out of every 40 to 60 is kind of an average. An average being about 50. About 50 door knocks per sell, typically. I remember one of my personal best days, I door knocked 150 doors. This was after college one day. Kind of a brief story real quick. I got out of college about noon. I drove about an hour and a half to 2 hours away from college to a place that I knew that had about 100 units. It was a senior housing facility and had about 100 senior housing units there. And so I went and door knocked all 100 of those, and also went down the road to another city and door knocked another 50 there. And that was from about 2 o'clock. I got out of college about noon. I started knocking about 2 o'clock and finished about 8 o'clock that night. And it was in the month of April, I believe. And so it was dark when I was still knocking, but I had a goal to write 6 apps in that one single day from 150 knocks. And fortunately, that's exactly what I did. I did the last one 7:45, close to 8 o'clock, and wrote 6 final expense applications in one day from door knocking. And I did that as a captive agent with only one product. I only had a guaranteed issue product, and if someone was healthy, I didn't even have another option. So I mean, it was when you've got options and you got several companies and several plans and the lowest price, then it makes this that much easier, especially when my commission now is double to triple what I was getting paid back then. And so that's kind of a brief story, but the average is about 50. That day I was selling about 1 out of every 30 knocks. But that specific day, not only was I hitting on all cylinders, which we have those days, but also it was warm outside, people's doors were open, and the places that I went to, a lot of the time, they were sitting in their recliner, and I would knock on their door, and they would just say, "Come on in," And they would a lot of them probably didn't realize, hey, wait, this is an insurance guy. They probably thought it was a maintenance guy or a neighbor, or the manager or something like that. But you will run into that when you're door knocking. And so I would say average about one sale of every 50 knocks. The time, any questions on the actual numbers behind door knocking before we get into the specific times to door knock? Any questions from anybody about the specific numbers behind this? It's not rocket science. It just takes some effort and obviously some skill, which you will develop. The time to door knock, I typically don't like to start before 9:30 or 10 o'clock. I find a lot of, depending on the place I'm knocking, they could still be in bed, or they could be up. They could be up really early, or they could be sleeping in until 10 o'clock. You just never know. So I typically don't start till about 9:30 or 10, and I typically try not to knock past dark. I know the story I just used. I did, but that was kind of a special scenario. I had a goal I wanted to hit, and that's one thing to remember too. Is when you're setting, no matter what you're doing, you want to set a goal, because if you set a goal, you have something you can achieve, and if you don't set a goal, you don't have anything to shoot for. And so I would say about 9:30 or 10 a.m. till about dark, 7:30 p.m. Sometimes obviously dark earlier at 6 or 7 o'clock. Sometimes it's not dark depending on the time of year. Sometimes it's not dark till 8 o'clock. And so that's just. I've always felt that that's a good time to knock. I've actually wrote the most applications from knocking was in the late afternoon and early evening. For whatever reason, people are home, they're present, they're typically in a good mood, they're off work, or they've got their errands out of the way, or they're kind of winding down their day, they don't have anything to think about. I don't know what the psychology of it is, but I found that I was seeing phenomenal results during those specific times. Any questions on the time? On the time, on the timing or the time to actually door knock? Any questions there?
Yeah, one question from Frank.
Yeah.
Is within many communities there's a I believe there's a solicitation permit. Have you ever run into problems with that, or just don't address it, or
yeah?
comment on that?
I have. It's rare. I know where I live here. In many counties, many areas, many cities, there's nothing. I mean, most places you're just able to solicit. Unfortunately, I have in the past when I was younger. I'm not going to say that I didn't ignore some of those signs, get kicked out of some places. I'm not going to do that anymore. Just not worth it, But early in my career, I did door knocks places I shouldn't. Also, sometimes the sign's so small when you enter. I've actually seriously never even noticed the door knocking sign before, or the no soliciting, and then was told and apologized and left. Which that's what I do, whether I see it or not. But there's a lot of times you don't even notice it. I do know in Arkansas, I've had a little more trouble with actually door knocking in only northwest Arkansas, only because that's a nicer area. There's more money there, and apparently there's a lot more elderly there in those areas, and so they've got some. It seems like a lot of places have some no soliciting signs down there. I've wrote business down there, and made money down there, and but. Yeah, certain areas you'd have to worry about it a little bit. Typically the types of places, and that's what I'm going to get to next, is the types of places to door knock. Typically those certain types of places you don't have to worry about it. Does that answer your question, Frank?
Yes.
Okay, thanks buddy. The types of places to knock is, I found a little bit of an advantage, or kind of what I love to door knock, is senior housing. And I'll go into that in a little more detail. I won't give specific areas just because I know this is going on YouTube, and I want to reserve this for the agents that are actually contracted with us, so that we don't have other agents in this area going door knocking in our secret places. But there are a lot of senior housing places in a lot of the cities around here, or a lot of the cities everywhere. A lot of the smaller cities will have a senior housing complex. Some of them will only have 10 to 15 units, upwards of 100 units. And those are small. It's where you've got a building and you've got 4 different quadrants, and you've got 4 different units and 4 different seniors living in that exact same building. And sometimes you'll have 4 buildings on a premises in some of these smaller cities. And you'll have upwards of, 25, 20, 30, 40, 50 buildings. It just depends on the area. I've also had a lot of success with Section 8 housing. Yes, you will run into some lower income individuals, which is what we want, but you'll run into some younger individuals. You won't find like those senior housing facilities. Normally it's 50, 55 plus. So that's what we want. Where the Section 8 housing, you could find people 35, 40 years old that are just on Social Security disability and that are living there. And they may be in great health. They just may be on Social Security disability. I'm not going to comment much on that, but that's just that happens a lot.
Do you find they want to give you a card because they're getting disability? Nowadays I've run into some that just want to give you a card and say this, and they don't have a checking account.
Actually worked with a new agent back when I first started, because I took him out, and we also did some door knocking and stuff. We were at the captive company that would not allow credit and debit cards. And he wrote, he went to a certain Section 8 housing complex it was a pretty bad part of town, and he didn't need to be there after dark, we'll just say that. But he wrote 11 apps in 3 or 4 days, and he thought we could do direct bill through the mail because they all had those Social Security Direct Express MasterCards, those disability debit cards. And fortunately, he wasn't able to write any of that business with the specific captive company we were with. But thankfully, you will run into that a lot, where they've got the little debit card, the Social Security debit card. But fortunately, we've got a handful of companies that we can use to combat that. So yeah, you'll run into that a lot. I've also tried some other places. I've tried some assisted living facilities. I've even tried, I even think I tried a nursing home a long time ago. That was really dumb. But I think I've also tried nicer senior apartments where they're upwards of a couple grand a month, and they're real nice senior apartments with garages and everything else, like those nice senior duplexes and stuff. Those are the ones that you're just not allowed to door knock in. They've got money there, and they've got people paying a premium to be in there, and they're not going to allow solicitors. That's just the way it is. So I found the best success with senior housing, Section 8 housing. I've also done some residential housing, which is okay if you door knock the right areas. I found some success in trailer parks. I've also found some success in residential housing where it's an older community full of seniors. Because what we want is people 50 and older. That's just what 50, 55 and older. That's just the kind of the age demographic that we're looking for. You don't want to go too wealthy, because then it becomes tough to get in. They've got the financial advisors or the insurance guys. And I've even tried door knocking country club housing, and I didn't have great success there, unfortunately. So that's typically the lower income, the more receptive. For whatever reason, that's just the way it is. Any questions on the types of places to door knock? Before we move on into the actual scripting. Okay.
Yeah, I've got Frank.
Yeah.
Frank with one more question. On because I've been researching, Cody, with the door knocking Medicare supplements, and from what I can tell, in looking through statutes and that, and again, I'm no attorney, but it looks like apparently there are some states where Medicare supplements you can door knock. The question is Missouri one of those states?
Yeah,
Because
you can door knock for Med Sup. You just can't door knock for Med Advantage. So when you're door knocking about Med Sup, you're okay there. We've actually got one agent here.
You say Missouri is one of the states that it's okay though for Med Sup that you think, right?
Absolutely. I've run a lot of business door knocking. We've got an agent here that used to do a lot of Medicare supplement door knocking. I don't know why he quit, because every time he went out, he would map out about 25 houses, and he would always come back with one Med Sup app every time he did that. And so he was good at it. He's a young guy, but he comes across as a trusting individual, and he knows Medicare well. And he knows that the key is to get in the house, and the key with Medicare is to quote a price as often as you can, because we've got the lowest price. So if we can get it in front of them, they're going to buy it. And so he used that to his advantage. But yeah, door knocking for mapping out an area and door knocking for Med Subs. He was door knocking people that were turning 65. You could door knock for anything in insurance. You could door knock for cancer plans or home health care. I've door knocked for Medicare. I prefer to door knock for final expense because my return on investment in the short term is actually higher, and I just enjoy door knocking those more. But you can certainly door knock for Med Sup, and especially in Missouri. People in Missouri love for us to door knock and help them with their Medicare. Now, not everyone, but okay. Now I'm going to move into the actual script, and there's some psychology behind this as far as what you're doing when you're walking up to the door, how you're actually approaching the door. And so one of the first things I do is when I'm approaching the door from the street or from the sidewalk or whatever, if their window is open, I am smiling and waving at the window, whether I can see them or not. Because if they're in there and they're looking out, they're going to think that I saw them, and they are going to answer the door. Because they're going to think, oh crap, he saw me, so he knows I'm here, so I've got to answer the door now. Not that they have to, but they think they do. And so there's some psychology to that, something I've always done. I don't even think I heard that. I think I just started picking that up one day just from door knocking a lot. Also, something I've also done is if I think they're looking through the peephole, sometimes we think that, I smile and wave at the peephole. I'll also if they're looking out, if I know they're looking out the window, then I'm really going to smile and wave, because whether I see them or not, I'm going to get a smile and a wave in just in case they're in there looking at me. And I look excited and bubbly. And when I first started doing this, I got mistaken for a Jehovah's Witness a lot. Because I would wear a shirt and tie, and I was this 20-year-old kid. I wasn't even 21 yet, actually, when I started door knocking. And I didn't have a bike, but I got mistaken for a Jehovah's Witness a lot. So now I just typically wear a polo and some slacks, and I still get mistaken for sometimes, but not too bad. I don't ring the doorbell either. I've always heard that friends and family knock, and that people that aren't friends and family ring the doorbell. And so I don't ring the doorbell. I always knock. Now, after a while, if I can't get their attention and they're not coming to the door, then I may ring the doorbell. But I'm starting off with several loud knocks. And when I say loud, I'm talking. Here, I'll do it on the wall so I don't do it on the table with the recording going on, but I'm doing, and so I'm trying to, and it's even louder. Obviously, you couldn't hear because the wall is a little hollow probably, but you want to make sure that you do it powerful enough that they hear you. A lot of new agents will door knock and it's not very loud or it's soft, and all you're doing is wasting some of your knocks. You're just totally wasting it, because if they do hear you, it doesn't really get their attention, and it's giving them a chance to really think about how they're going to hide or something, So you want it to be powerful. Sometimes I'll even do, the whole, just kind of a fun knock. But generally, I'll try to knock very powerfully, very loud, not to scare them, not to sound like the police or anything. But I do want them to know, hey, there's someone at my door. And so that's something I've learned. A lot of new agents really knock really timidly. Now the scripting behind what I do. Now, I almost put on. I don't really put on an acting cap. I used to say that, but I don't really do that. I just when I see them open the door, generally if there's a screen door, I'm going to hold the screen door open, and I'm going to stand in between the screen door and the main door, so that when they open the main door, the screen door's open, and we're standing there. And they can't say, I can't hear you, or they can't make excuses because the screen's in between us. So if the screen door's unlocked, I am opening the screen door and standing right dab in between them, in between the doors with them. And I'm very enthusiastic. I'm becoming very enthusiastic. I'm smiling. I got a huge smile on my face. Hello, good afternoon. I'm saying, hello, good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Cody, and I help seniors in our area with their burial and final expenses. Can I come in for a quick second? It's very short, it's very sweet, and it's very direct. And I'm asking to come in immediately. And a lot of times they will say, okay, yeah, sure, come on in real quick. But sometimes they will give objections. So again, to read the script, hello, good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Cody, and I help seniors in our local area with their burial and their final expenses. Can I come in for a quick second? Sometimes they'll even snap because it makes it seem quicker. And so that is, I've done a lot of different, scripting, and, it matters less and less what you say, as long as it's short, as long as it's direct, as long as it's enthusiastic, as long as you're smiling, and as long as you're asking to come in. It doesn't matter what I say, truthfully. Now, after I read that off, a lot of times I will look down and start wiping off my feet, assuming that they are going to let me come in. And sometimes that works. They think, well, I guess he's coming in. And so sometimes they will, they will actually just let us come in from that. So if the enthusiastic little short script asking to come in doesn't work, I'm immediately looking down and wiping off my feet and assuming that I'm coming in. We always want to assume the sell. We want to assume everything we do, because if we don't assume that they're going to do it, they're not going to think that they should do it. That's with anything. So that's one thing I do. Any questions before I move into some actual objections that you will get? Any questions about the walking up to the door, knocking on the door, the scripting behind it, asking to come in, looking down and wiping off your feet? Any questions about the actual scripting of it real quick? Okay. Now, some typical objections that you will get, that you will need to overcome, is a lot of times they will say, one of the most popular ones is, there's three that I think you'll get a lot: I'm busy, or I don't have time. And that's something I feel like you'll get a lot. And one of the things that I always, in any of my responses, I want them to be very short, very brief, And at the end of it, I typically want to ask to come in again. I want to go for the close every time. Oh, I understand. I'll be very, very brief. You could even set a stopwatch and kick me out at 5 minutes if you'd like. Can I come in for a quick second again? And so it's brief, it's short, you're answering their objection, and you're asking to come in again. Just like that. No, I'm busy, I don't have the time. I understand, I'll be very brief. You could even set a stopwatch and kick me out at 5 minutes if you'd like. Can I come in for a quick second? And who's going to say no to a nice, good-looking, smiling, trusting, enthusiastic insurance man? Especially when he's satisfying the objection, he's politely answering it, and he's asking to come in again. Hopefully that makes sense. And that's generally how I answer any objection. Doesn't matter who it's from or what it is. I'm politely and respectfully and quickly answering. I'm sympathizing with them. I'm answering the objection, and then I'm going for the close again. So the next one that you will get a lot is, I already have insurance, or I already have my burial taken care of, or I already have my final expenses taken care of, anything of that sort. And so if they say that, a lot of times I'll say, and it varies by the individual. I'm just giving you some ideas of what I would say. And a lot of times I'll say, that's very impressive. Most people don't take the time to plan and prepare. I'll just give you a very quick free quote then. Should we sit in the living room or should we sit in the dining room at the dining room table? I'm agreeing, I'm answering the objection, and I'm going for the close again. And so I don't know why, I love to compliment them. People love to be complimented. They love for their ego to be boosted and built. And they also love to be agreed with. The customer's always right. And they say, well, you probably can't help me. You know what? I may not be able to help you. You may be right. But let's take 60 seconds and find out for sure, okay? It's just a free quote. I'll be very, very brief. Should we sit at the kitchen or the dining room table? And I'm telling you, these things work because a lot of times you will hear agents say, when they get objections in general, you will hear agents say, okay, well, I was just going to give you a free quote. Well, when you're responding like that, you might as well be backing up. Because the way you're saying it, number one, you're disagreeing with the customer. And number two, you aren't complimenting them. And number three, you're saying it as in a past tense way, as if it was never going to happen to begin with. There's a lot of psychology to this in the way we word things. And overcoming these objections is the biggest key to getting in houses or not getting in houses. Because I can tell you, I get in front of enough people with some objections. Number one, my confidence is going to build because I'm going to start getting in those houses. But secondly, my skill's going to start to improve. I'm going to start to gain some momentum. That's why you got to knock a lot of doors, because the more you knock, the better you get. And generally, towards the end of the day, you're at your peak. You're at your very best, and you're generally writing applications towards the end. Just because it's like warming up for a game. It's already halftime or the fourth quarter, and you are at your peak. And you're feeling it. So that one, I already have insurance. I already have it through a funeral home, anything like that. That's very impressive. Most people don't take the time to prepare. I'm just going to give you a very quick free quote then. Again, I'll be very brief. Should we sit at the living room or should we sit at the dining room table? You want to agree, you want to answer, and you want to close. That's it. And you want to smile all through the way, every second of the way. A lot of times another objection we'll get is, I'm not interested, or no thank you, or something of that nature. You know what, ma'am? I understand. Believe it or not, all of my clients said that at first. Because, to be honest, you have nothing to be interested in yet. Again, I'll be very brief. You can set a stopwatch, kick me out at 3 minutes if you'd like. Sound fair enough? That specific phrasing is a more passive close. I like the way it sounds though, and the way it comes off. Does that sound fair enough? But we could get a little more direct.
Hey, Cody, can you say that one more time? Would you have the response?
Yeah. You know what, ma'am? I completely understand. All of my clients said that at first because they had nothing to be interested in at this moment. So again, I'll be very brief. I only need about 3 minutes of your time. Sound fair enough?